You're sitting in a waiting room. No phone, no book. Just you, a clock, and four blank walls. 10 minutes in, your leg starts bouncing. Your mind starts scanning for anything. A magazine from 3 years ago suddenly looks fascinating. This feeling has a name. You call it boredom, but your brain calls it something else entirely. It calls it danger. Psychologist Timothy Wilson ran an experiment in 2014 that revealed just how far people will go to escape this feeling. He put people alone in a room with nothing to do but think. No phone, no music, nothing. The only other option in the room was a button that delivered a mild electric shock. Something strange happened. A large share of participants, including many who had said beforehand that they would pay money to avoid being shocked, chose to shock themselves rather than sit quietly with their own thoughts. Some shocked themselves more than once. Why would a rational person choose pain over stillness? Because stillness was never supposed to happen. Not like this. Not for this long. For nearly all of human history, boredom did not mean an empty afternoon. It meant an empty stomach. Your ancestors did not experience unstructured time as relaxation. They experienced it as a warning. A quiet mind was a mind that had stopped noticing threats, stopped tracking food, stopped scanning the tree line for movement. Boredom, to the ancient brain, was the feeling of falling behind in a game where falling behind could get you killed. Cognitive scientist John Eastwood, who has spent decades studying boredom at York University, defines it as the uncomfortable feeling of wanting to be engaged in a satisfying activity, but being unable to. Notice the wording, not the absence of activity, the failure to connect with one. Your brain is not asking you to do something, it is demanding it, and that demand feels almost identical, neurologically, to a low hum of distress. Here is the part that reframes everything. Boredom is not the opposite of stress, it is a form of it. When researchers scan the brains of people experiencing boredom, they see activation in regions tied to discomfort and restlessness, not regions tied to calm. Your body releases small amounts of cortisol. Your heart rate can actually rise slightly. You are not relaxing. You are on standby, waiting for a signal that something changed, something moved, something needs your attention. For a forager 40,000 years ago, that signal usually came fast. A rustle in the grass, a shift in the wind, a distant call from another member of the group. The environment was loud with information, and your ancestors' brains evolved to constantly hunt for the next piece of it. Now picture that same brain, built by hundreds of thousands of years of scanning a living, moving, dangerous world, sitting in a beige office chair, staring at a spreadsheet. The scanning never stopped. It just has almost nothing left to find. This is why boredom feels worse the more comfortable your environment becomes. A waiting room is safer than a savanna. There is no lion behind the water cooler. But your brain does not know the difference between an environment with no threats and an environment with no information. Both register as blank, and blank is where the discomfort lives. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies, including the Hadza of Tanzania, have noted something that challenges the assumption that ancient life was simple and slow. Their daily rhythm was not passive. It was a constant negotiation with an unpredictable environment, tracking animals, reading weather, managing relationships within a small, interdependent group where every social shift mattered. There was rarely a moment where nothing needed to be tracked. The brain had a job every waking hour, and that job had immediate consequences. You inherited that same brain, but you gave it a world with almost none of those consequences left in it. Think about what actually interrupts your boredom today. A notification, a scroll, a new video queued up before the last one finishes. Technology companies did not invent your restlessness. They found it already sitting there, fully formed, 40,000 years old, and built an entire industry on feeding it small hits of the exact stimulation your ancestors once had to work, hunt, and travel for. Every swipe is a tiny rustle in the grass. Every notification is a distant call from the group. Your thumb is doing what your eyes once did on a ridgeline at dusk, searching for the next signal that something has changed. Here is the twist most people miss. Boredom was never a flaw in the system. It was the system working exactly as intended. Researchers who study attention and motivation, including work building on psychologist Andreas Elpidoru's writing on the function of boredom, describe it less as a malfunction and more as a push away from something unrewarding and towards something new. In an ancient environment, that push had somewhere useful to go, toward food, toward safety, toward connection with the group, since isolation from the tribe was its own kind of danger. Boredom was not punishment, it was a compass. It pointed you toward whatever your survival needed next. The compass still works. What changed is the terrain. Modern life offers almost unlimited ways to satisfy that push without ever pointing you toward anything that actually matters. You can silence the restlessness for hours with a feed that gives you novelty without necessity, movement without meaning. This might explain why so many people report feeling bored even when they are constantly busy. Busy is not the same as engaged. You can fill every hour and still feel that same low hum because the activities filling your time are not the kind your compass was built to reward. Scrolling for 2 hours can produce more restlessness afterward than sitting quietly for 10 minutes ever did, because it stimulates the search without ever letting it land on something that resolves it. So what actually quiets the ancient alarm? Studies on flow states, engagement, and boredom recovery consistently point toward the same conditions your ancestors lived inside by default. Tasks with a clear goal, immediate feedback, a level of challenge that stretches you without overwhelming you, cooking a difficult recipe, learning an instrument, having a real conversation that requires your full attention. These activities give the ancient scanning system something concrete to track and resolve, the same way tracking an animal across a landscape once did. The compass points, and this time it actually arrives somewhere. There is something almost tender in this reframing. Your restlessness was never proof that something is wrong with you. It was proof that something in you is still working exactly as it was built to. The same wiring that once kept a small group of humans alive on an unforgiving landscape is still firing inside you right now, still scanning, still asking for something worth its attention. The next time boredom creeps in a waiting room, in a meeting, in the 15 minutes before you fall asleep, notice it without reaching immediately for your phone. That discomfort is not empty. It is a message from a very old part of your brain, one that has been sending the same signal for tens of thousands of years. It is not telling you to escape the moment. It is telling you that you are alive enough to still be listening for what comes next. You were sitting in a waiting room and boredom felt like nothing. It was never nothing. It was the oldest part of you, still watching the tree line, still waiting for something worth noticing, and this time, the something worth noticing was you.